tremendous morning this morning, and a very, very special welcome to each and every person all throughout central and upstate New York, our second home of the great state of Florida, and of course around the country and the world. However you're listening, wherever you're listening and watching, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora coming to you on so many different channels, and we appreciate every single one of them that can get out to you. If you're watching and listening on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, we want to say thank you, as well as on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/livenowdt, and of course listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com, where the live feed is embedded. So however you're tuning into the show, thank you so much. And of course you can get the show archives all throughout so many different apps that you can download for free onto your phone or any of your devices. And of course, with so many cars having the hands-free CarPlay now, you can get all of these as well in the vehicle: Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, MixLR, YouTube, and iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and pick us up there, or you can search one word, Wake Up Call DT, and get us as well. So however you're tuning in, thank you so much, and we appreciate it. With that being stated, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, very happy to be here, and Cafe Kubal with many locations all throughout central and upstate New York, making it easy to get the coffee you love, coming from the local people that you appreciate seeing every day and building those bonds and those relationships. You can head out to Cafe Kubal on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. Also inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital in downtown Syracuse, and of course on 401 South Salina Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 324 West Water Street, and 3501 James Street in Syracuse. And their newest location, which is their first ever drive-through, and I'm so excited that they finally got their drive-through up and running. I know it's something that Matt Goddard, the owner and operator, wanted to do, and that's on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in the Sweetheart Corners lot. And Sweetheart Corners, for anybody that's lived in Syracuse, you know that that is a nostalgic, great piece to our history here in central and upstate New York. So having Cafe Kubal connected to that history, connecting to that nostalgia, and connecting to the communities, you know, just really connecting to our times that will be forever. You know, that's Sweetheart Corners is a place that we'll hold on to forever. So having them be a part of that is truly special, and it's truly right for a local company to take that place. So with that being said, happy to have you here inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Hour number one dedicated to my guy Jason Lucas. Hour number two to Dave Pasiak. Jason will join us and bring about truly our Florida in Focus, coming to us from the great state of Florida. You know that Thursdays from 9 to 10, you usually have Papa Joe here, and PJ is nursing some ailments right now, so I ask that we all say a prayer for Papa Joe and send our love and well wishes to him. And, you know, I'd really love to just take a second to do that. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. I want to send our best to Papa Joe. He has meant so much to the show Thursday mornings. You know, it's something that meant a lot to me, and I hope that it would mean a lot to other people, and it has. And by the grace of God, I'm thankful for that people have really appreciated his voice, his insight, his thoughts, his knowledge, his wisdom, his comedy, and he really is a beautiful soul. He's another father to me. So we pray today that he heals completely and for good, and no matter what, that he heals through you, God, and that he handles well whatever comes his way, and that he's healthy, safe, and happy, enjoys all of his time, which is long and fun and goes by slowly, and that he does your will, and that he is well, and uses all your gifts for good. So for Papa Joe and for everybody that needs a prayer this morning, we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So we're rooting for you, PJ, and Jason has taken up the post today, and Jason is someone who is a reoccurring person on the show from PR to the press. He has worked on both sides of the coin in the sports world and has an incredible sports mind. He's one of my closest and nearest and dearest friends, so having him on the show is a multi-layered, very positive for me. And so I'm happy to have him here this morning to talk about a lot of different things, from NFL moves to college football playoff expansion and college football in general, the name, image, and likeness, and so much more, including free agency in college athletics. So we'll talk about all of that and then we'll get into the NBA playoffs with Dave Pasiak, as we have done pretty much every week through the playoffs. Before the playoffs even started, we've had Dave here on the show to be a reoccurring voice when it comes to speaking on the NBA, as he is a longtime basketball head coach and a lover of the game, as well as an analyst of the game. So we'll have him on here in just a little bit. So with all that being said, Jason Lucas here with us this morning to start things off. Let's bring him in. Jason, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Dan. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day up there in New York, buddy. $1.19 million just went into Bobby Bonilla's account this morning.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and I was going to say something this morning about it because my buddy Ross put it up, but yes, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. One of the worst decisions ever made by a franchise and one of the best decisions ever made by an individual. Bobby Bonilla definitely got the best of the Mets in this one. So a big-time congratulations to him, as he will get over $1 million deposited into his bank account for not having to do a dang thing. And he will continue to receive money until 2035. Over $1 million every year until 2030, well, including 2035, when he will be, I believe, 72 years old. So shout out to Bobby Bonilla, who said, you know what, instead of paying me up front, why don't you give me increments over time? And so no matter what he does with his life and what's going on, every July 1st, that man is going to make himself a cool $1 million. What do you... I guess I don't even know how to open the discussion on that, Jason. It's fantastic for Bobby, but the Mets having him count against the cap until he's 72 is just insane.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess if you're Bobby Bonilla, the number one thing that you don't want to do is switch banks, because you don't want to have to put that direct deposit form back in with the Mets. They might claim they lost it or something and not pay him. So yeah, I mean, it's another way to go for sure. And as far as I know, he's the only one that did it that way, and he'll benefit until he's 72 years old. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know how I can get a Bobby Bonilla deal. Like that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, can I have some, when I make that first mill, can I say to Netflix, hey, you know what? Why don't you, instead of giving me $20 million, why don't you pay me in increments over the next, why don't you give me a mill every 20 years? And then I know no matter what, I got $1 million every July 1st. And I just have to be responsible with how I spend $1 million every single year, which I think I'm capable of, since I've been responsible in spending far less every year. So I think I'll be all right. But it boggles my mind every time I experience the Bobby Bonilla Day and just people talking about it in general. I think it's incredible. I think it's awesome. And then on one side, and then I also think that it was incredibly stupid on the other side. But that's just my take on it. And I think that, obviously sometimes people win and lose in some of this stuff. And obviously Bobby won and nobody else.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad the Marlins borrowed him to help win a world championship before he went to the Mets and signed this deal, because that would have been the Marlins paying him for this long. So good for them borrowing him to get a championship real quick and then sending him to New York too.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta strike while the iron's hot, I guess. But it's an interesting world when stuff like that happens. And speaking of interesting, the discussion that we have this morning is manyfold. And there's a lot of things that are going on in the world of sports. I want to start in the NFL. And this move obviously hasn't been made yet. And we don't know if it will be made. And there's many people that are hoping that it won't be made that live in the great state of Wisconsin. But what is your take on this very strange Aaron Rodgers? He's the quarterback, but he's not necessarily going to practice. And the receivers support him. And apparently things aren't going well. And then from people that I know very close to the situation, they're not allowed to speak on anything. So what's your take on the goings-on of the Green Bay Packers right now as we sit here and say, okay, Aaron Rodgers is the guy, but is he happy? Does he want to be there? Is anything getting figured out? I mean, this is literally like a helicopter surrounding Michael Jackson's house. That's what I feel like right now. Everybody's waiting for Aaron Rodgers to come outside. Now, he's gone on vacation and he's done other things, but everyone is kind of just sitting and waiting to find out what exactly is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers and really to hear him say something. What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, you're talking to me, the PR guy. So, of course, I look at it from that standpoint, and I say, what a great move by Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, everybody involved with this, keeping it in the news every day. It keeps your name in the mouth of all these people on ESPN talking about you every day and talking about your quarterback and talking about this might happen, that might happen. But, I mean, when you look at it in that way, it's bringing money and it's bringing interest. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're just sitting there on vacation. You're not coming to mini camp. You don't have to deal with any of that crap that the rookies and younger guys have to deal with. You're taking some time off. So as a fan perspective, maybe I'm like, well, dang, this kind of crap happened with Brett Favre too. Like, what is it with these Green Bay quarterbacks getting late in their career? And it's like, nah, maybe I don't want to be here anymore. I might retire. I'm not really sure what I want to do. And it's going to be very interesting to see when everything does come to a head, if he heads out of town or if he sticks around. I mean, obviously they've drafted his replacement in Jordan Love, so you never know what's going to happen because that replacement guy is there, and the Packers could decide one day, hey, you're expendable. We're going to go ahead and trade you out of town or release you outright.
Yeah, and the thing is, he just signed an extension, and he has numerous years left on his contract. And this is something that I don't get in sports. Contracts genuinely don't matter anymore. And guys sign a 5-year deal, and after the first year in the deal, they're like, you know what? I don't really like this team anymore. I don't really like the coach. He didn't listen to me yesterday. I said I wanted roast beef in the cafeteria, and they put turkey. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't understand how we live in a world where a coach can... and I talked about this yesterday with Al Romano. I was at the American Athletic Kickoff with all of the football coaches, and in one single season, 3 coaches in that conference signed an extension. None of them were on the team in December. So, you look at this and say, okay, this guy signed a 4-year, a 5-year, a 3-year, a 2-year, and none of them are there. So, what is it with contracts that these guys sign extensions? Oh, I'm going to be here the next 5 years, and 2 months later, they're across the country. And then in Aaron Rodgers' case, it feels like, hey, you know what? I'm supposed to be here for the next 3 or 4 years, but I might just decide to go somewhere else. Why do contracts not matter? I thought, your word is your bond. You shake your hand, that's your bond. And if you can't live by that, when you sign on a piece of paper, it's a legal bond. And that piece of paper that you signed, you can get sued if you break that bond. So, what, from a PR standpoint and from everything you've dealt with, and you've dealt with being in a bank, what can you say about the fact that, when there's money on the table and there's agreement signed, there's a contract that finite says this is going to happen and these people agree to it, why do contracts not matter anymore?
I think it's all a world of what have you done for me lately? How did you perform last week, not last year? And I think that plays a big role in it when you're looking at it from the owner's box and when you're looking at it from the player's box too, because the player might say, hey, I had an amazing year last year. Where's more money for me? Because I should get more money no matter what. If I'm only here for 5 years, well, I got to make the max amount of money I can. So I'm going to ask for a raise. As long as I had a great season, I have every right to do so. So it's kind of a catch-22 between the players and the owners to see who blinks first on these contracts. But then, like you're saying, the contract might not be good next year because maybe you sucked the following year. And the team's looking at, hey, maybe we're going to cut back on that contract a little bit, shave a few bucks off. We kind of need somebody else in this area that we want to bring in, and we're going to take your money away and relocate it. You just never know what goes on in those discussions. And it's really what makes football so much fun to watch, or any sport really so much fun to watch, because you just never know what the deal is going to be for every given guy. And then depending upon what that guy gets, there's somebody else with a different team like, well, hey, he's the highest paid corner in the league. I should be the highest paid corner in the league. So you just never know where it's going to end up and who's going to be highest paid and how high it eventually goes.
Well, and it continues to change over time. And the thing is, it can backfire, right? I had a really good season. I'm Aaron Rodgers. I want more money. I'm going to hold you hostage. and the team maybe gives him what he wants. And then the next year, he throws 27 interceptions, and the team turns around and goes, guess what, brother? We're shopping you now. I mean, it can really backfire, but the thing that I don't understand is I thought that contracts had meaning, right? If there's a player option or a team option 4 years from now, then for the next 3 years, you're on that team. Not anymore. Now you can go to Twitter and go, I don't like the Baltimore Ravens. They make me feel bad. I want my own way. Stomp, stomp my foot. And then they let you go. And it's just, I don't understand it, because as a businessman, you function on people's word and you function on contracts. You function on, it's not just me, it's an architect. It's anybody. When you sign a deal and say, I'm going to pay you to build this building, and halfway through building this building, the person rips up the contract and goes, I'm not going to pay you any money, thanks for building half of it. You can't do that. Yet in the world of sports, we see it all the time now. And that's one of the things with name, image, and likeness that's been brought up that I think has an important piece in all this, is that, players making money and really the transfer rule and all this stuff, players having an opportunity to make decisions and do things for themselves, because coaches screw them over all the time. Coaches genuinely screw these players over. They say, I love Auburn. I'm all about Auburn. Come to Auburn. Auburn, Auburn, Auburn. I live for Auburn. Everybody's going to love Auburn. I want you to be here at Auburn. And then they go to Arkansas and say, screw Auburn. And then they say, why don't you come to Arkansas? It's coaches do this in college football. In college football, it is, besides Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, every single year we stare at the college football, ticker, and just wait to see how many coaches are fired, move on, where they go. Every year, it's free agency for coaches. It doesn't matter what they sign. It doesn't matter what the buyout is. They got to have a $50 million buyout, and one booster comes in with a check that he made from breakfast and goes, here, get rid of the guy. So I think college football is probably the biggest kind of spotlight when I'm talking about this stuff, that if I'm a player and I go to Texas, and I'm going to be their future quarterback, and the coach says, I love you, you got to come here, let's win, 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 and then he leaves and goes to Oregon, and then I transfer to TCU, and then that coach gets fired, and now I'm transferring to Syracuse, and that coach isn't winning, so now I'm transferring to Florida. When people say that the players don't deserve anything, I don't agree with that. But there's a slippery slope that we'll get into today. But what do you think about the transfer rule? Basically telling players, at least for this year, there's no interleague penalty. There's no penalty whatsoever. If you transfer this year, you can play right away. Nothing's going to stop you. You can go to any school you want, in any division you want, any league you want. You can do whatever you want, and you can play right away. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's finally allowing a player to kind of give a middle finger to a coach and say, I'm going to go do what I want to do, which is what coaches maybe inadvertently do to their players. Some of them care. Some of the coaches reach out there and they care and they have love. And some of the other coaches don't even bother to text the players, and the players find out on the ESPN ticker that their coach isn't there anymore. So does this create an avenue that almost finally shows the coaches what it's like to spit into the wind?
Yeah, the number one thing I think of with colleges is depth. You get those schools like in Auburn, you mentioned, that have, they have those 4- and 5-star guys that come in every year, and they'll have a 4- or 5-star guy sitting on the bench behind another 4- or 5-star guy. So there's all sorts of depth in those schools. But then you look at maybe a UCF that's not as deep, and they could use a guy like that right away. And I think that's why you're seeing, like with Gus Malzahn and UCF, some of the Auburn transfers are coming his way because they know that they could play right away with us. So, it's definitely interesting to see what the players do depending upon the situation, because they realize they've only got that little 4 years to put the good film on tape for the NFL and to get themselves drafted and to make that money, because before today, it's the only way they can make money is making it to the NFL. So it is interesting, and I think a lot of things will factor into those decisions as the players decide if they're going to stay where they're at or if the grass is greener on the other side and give it a shot somewhere else.
Speaking here with Jason Lucas from PR to the Press, been on both sides of the sports world, and he's here with us this morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, first hour, to speak with us about a lot of different things that are going on in the world of sports. Let's look at the transfer rule. What are your thoughts? I mean, the NCAA has officially opened it up and said, listen, whatever sport you play, whatever you're doing, you can transfer. Due to the COVID situation, we're going to give you a free year, and we're going to let you go wherever the heck you want to go without having to sit out a year and ask for a waiver. You know, and Syracuse has dealt with people before where one of the guys that came in allegedly asked for a waiver because of a family situation that was serious, and he didn't get it. And then Justin Fields asked for a waiver because he wants to play football. So, and he gets it. So, you know, it's a very strange situation, but we know that the NCAA does not. The NCAA by no means or stretch of any imagination stands for anything about fairness. There is no fairness in the NCAA. So, with knowing that, we live in a world where guys used to have to ask for waivers in order to be able to play right away. This year, they don't have to ask for anything. This year, they can go wherever they want and do whatever they want. What is your thought on this rule that, at least for this season, allows men and women of the college world to go where they please and play right away?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's great because they do have that flexibility, like you're saying, if there's a family issue or whatever. A lot of kids go away, far away to college, and if something was to happen back home, the pandemic striking, whatever it may be, they do have that flexibility to pick a school that's closer to home that maybe they didn't pick in the first place. Maybe situation changed. Really, you never know what goes into these decisions, but overall, I mean, it's great for them to have that flexibility, and maybe it opens some eyes to where, hey, maybe that's what they're going to do in the future. You never know with college sports. Everything is ever changing. The playoffs ever changing. You never really know what to expect, but I'm glad that they did that for this year, especially with the pandemic going on. It allowed a lot of these kids to be able to come play closer to home. We had a few guys at UCF do the same thing like you were saying. And that just allowed them to come play closer to home. And that way they're here. If anything goes down, they're right around the corner. They don't have to get on a plane or drive 8-9 hours, whatever it may be. So it's great. It allows that flexibility to be more family friendly.
Yeah, you know, and that's a positive side of it. The other thing is, once Pandora's box is open, Jason, you know she don't shut it. So if the box is open now, and the box is in a place where you can transfer interleague and not have to sit out. I can go from Syracuse to Pittsburgh, Duke to North Carolina, and I don't have to sit out. And I can also go anywhere else in the country. How do we go backward from this? How does the NCAA say, hey, this freebie transfer rule is for this year only, and we're never going to allow it again? Can they go back?
Of course they can. They're the NCAA. They make the rules. So at the end of the day, if they decide that, hey, it's not fair or whatever they want to do, they can go ahead and say, all right, well, it was just for that 1 year. If you missed it, you missed it, and now you're stuck where you're at unless you want to sit out a year and then come play there next year. So, and that, I think that was always fair. The ability to transfer but have to sit out a year and wait till you're legal to play again. I think that was always fair just because it discouraged it more than encouraged it. You didn't see a lot of transfers before just recently. You could grad transfer and be eligible right away, but there weren't a lot of other reasons for you to be able to play right away. And I think eventually you will see them go back to that. It's just going to be this one season, I believe.
You know, but to do this, it is opening a world that is dangerous because, and this is the catch-22. Sometimes people are transferring because of family or because a coach left. Listen, here are the reasons why, and I want to get in, and if there's any other ones that you have, then share them. Here are the reasons why, and this is not, a totality here, and this isn't like the only list. I'm sure there's other things, but I think it's okay to transfer if there's a family situation. I think it's okay to transfer if a coach screws you over. I think it's okay to transfer if a coach is fired. When they say you're committed to the school, you're not committed to the coach, that is BS. That's total BS. Because I went to Marywood University, 70% of the reason was because of the teacher that I really felt was going to take care of me and what I wanted to achieve. You do things with the people. You know, I would if I was being recruited right now and I was going to Florida because of Dan Mullen, and Dan Mullen leaves, and I believed in his vision and his mission, and we built this relationship, they're like, well, you still need to be committed to the school. Why? Why do I need to be committed to the school? I went there for him. I went there for his vision. You know, so it's I don't think it's fair to say to a player you have to commit to the school. I'm committing to the people that I'm going to be around. I'm committing to that. You know, if Jay Hammerin was not a teacher at Marywood University, maybe I ended up at University of Scranton. Maybe I ended up at Johnson College. Maybe I ended up somewhere else. Because I bought into him and his belief in me and his willingness to work with me. So, I mean, people don't buy Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I mean, you buy it for what you're doing. If somebody else stepped in here, if Bob Smith stepped in and ran Wake Up Call, it would be different. So, I think it's okay to leave if a coach is fired. I think it's okay to leave if a coach screws a kid over and lies to them. I think it's okay to leave for a family situation. I think it's okay to leave because of maybe mental health, or, far away from home, whatever that may be. I think those are all okay. What I don't think is okay, and again, this is not a total, list. There can be more to this because there's, collegiate athlete or future collegiate athlete or former one could say to me, Dan, what about this that I may not catch in this thing? But I'm just trying to make the argument. I think those reasons are okay to leave. What I don't think is okay to leave is, coach isn't playing me and I stomped my foot and he didn't listen. I don't like a world where people do not work hard for what they want. I can't stand that. A guy who's going to transfer 3 times in 4 years. I understand that there's situations where that'll happen, but where does hard work come in? Where does personal responsibility come in? Where does, do your best and see if you can get the job come in? Where does being patient on God come in? Where does God's plan be bigger than your plan? I just don't like the notion of transferring when it comes down to if this coach yells at me to try and get the best out of me, I don't like that he yelled at me, so I run away. I just don't like people running away from commitment, and I don't like people running away from responsibility, and I don't like people running away from having to actually work to gain something. I don't like the world where people want things handed to them, and if it's not easy, they don't want it. So in that case of transferring, I'm highly against it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on all the reasons. I mean, because like we said, coaches are always going places, and you do. I mean, a big part of the recruiting process is buying into these coaches, and it's a big part of getting hired as a coach is your ability to recruit players and your ability to get players to believe in your football philosophies and who you are as a man as well. So, like, if they're not getting it, and they, and the coach moves on, then that's absolutely a reason to go and to be allowed to go. But at the end of the day, these decisions are just hard to make, and they're, if you're the NCAA looking at this, you've got to say, all right, well, there need to be concrete rules in place. And whether they put that rule back in place where you have to sit out a year, because that's okay, because you're still going to the school. You're still able to go to the new school. But then transferring again can totally happen because, hey, I believe in this guy at this new school, and then he takes off too. That can happen, and that's kind of how you get the guy that transfers 3 times. So you just never know what's going to happen in college sports these days, man. They have really opened up, like you said, the Pandora's box. It's almost like anything goes at this moment. And it'll be interesting to see what they do down the road to try to limit those who are leaving for, coach yelled at me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they've allowed some people to transfer, whenever they want to, and Tate Martell I want to play. Okay, you get a transfer waiver. Guy says, I want to be close to my mom who's sick. Now you got to sit out a year. You got to choose between playing and your mom. So it doesn't make sense, and it needs to be fair. And really what the NCAA needs to do is what every good business would do. Set a series of rules and set a consequence to those rules and not have that consequence change depending on the employee. If you steal, you're fired. You know what I mean? Like stuff that's easy. So in the NCAA, if you break Rule 1, then A is your punishment. If you break Rule 2, then B is your punishment. Not if you break Rule 1, Z is your punishment if you're Kentucky, but if you break Rule 1, D is your punishment if you're Syracuse. It needs to be the same. You can't have fluid rules where these two institutions commit the exact same crime and they're treated differently. Because that's what's wrong with society in general, is having two people in the exact same situation treated differently. So the NCAA's got a lot of stuff to look at. We got a lot of stuff to look at. Name, image, and likeness. A player can make money at the NCAA Division I, II, or III level based on their name, image, and likeness. They can now seek sponsorships. You can now see them on a car commercial. There's all these things that come up now, and it's such a lasagna of a conversation. I could literally talk about this every day for a year and not get to everything. What is your thought on name, image, and likeness? Now, let me paint the picture in the background. The NCAA is a non-for-profit organization, which is hilarious. So, because non-for-profit organizations normally donate to something important. So, we're donating to the future of the children. No, you're not. You're not giving them the money. So, here's the thing. It's expensive to rent out arenas. Yeah, okay. So, not that expensive. So, the NCAA is a billion-dollar industry, but they're non-for-profit. So, they're making monies off them. They're making all types of money off the backs of these kids, and the kids get nothing. So, from that argument, now they get a stipend and all that, but I'm saying, like, you sell jerseys, you get nothing. They do all this stuff, you get nothing. So they make billions of dollars, and the kids aren't getting paid money from, March Madness and whatnot is what I'm getting at. So that's on one side of it. So they're saying, hey, without us, none of this stuff exists, so give us a share of the dough. But then on the other side of it, there's a danger zone. And the danger zone is you start letting players make money, name, image, and likeness. Number one, they're teenagers. Number two, some of them have never seen $100, $1,000. Number three, what happens, and I brought this up with El Romano at Pizza Man, what happens if Jason Lucas and I are both trying to be the quarterback of the UCF Knights, and Jason gets a deal with Ford Truck, and I don't. And Ford says, we back Lucas, and you do 3 months of commercials, and they agree to pay you $10,000. And then come September, I win the starting job. What happens? Do they ask for the money back? Do they pull your commercials? Do they shift the money to me? Do they go to the school and try to pressure the school? Are they friends with the chancellor? Are they friends with the president? Do they sit on the board? And do they say, we're not going to sign off on this building unless you let Jason play? So the world we're opening up to is, yes, the NCAA makes money off of these players that get nothing from that. The players, and I'm not saying they don't get a free education also. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the NCAA is billion-dollar industry, non-for-profit. I don't know where that money goes. And then, because I know some of it goes to certain places, but, you got $1 billion, you're going to have a little bit left over. So we don't know where that's going. And the players are saying, okay, we want money. But now if they get money, Jay, what's that going to cause in a locker room? What happens if I'm a receiver and every time I get 10 catches in a game, I get an extra $1,500? So I'm telling the quarterback to throw to me in the end zone. What happens when the running back says, I need to get 3 more carries? What happens when the defensive player says, I need to be out there in rotation because I need 1 more sack to cash in on this? What happens when boosters are also business owners? And on and on and on and on. If we open the door to name, image, and likeness, what are we opening the door to, Mr. PR?
Yeah, you're opening the door up to a lot of controversy and arguments. And I got to say that I wasn't surprised this morning to wake up and have an alert on my phone saying Florida State quarterback Mackenzie Milton and Miami quarterback De'Aaron King have entered the marketplace for name, image, and likeness, making their own platform, a company called Dreamfield, that's going to help other athletes use that platform to do things such as signings and meet and greets and other things to use their name, image, and likeness. So right off the bat, you've got two quarterbacks of rival schools that are already involved in contract. They're together. So it's very interesting to me, Dan, to see that they don't go to the same school, but they have talked to each other, and they're at two of the power schools in this state, and our state is the one that kind of pushed this law into being right away today. So very interesting to see that Florida State-Miami game this season. Who knows what might go down? Who knows the type of pressure these kids could be under by the time they get to that game from everybody that they're going to work with at their new company. It's going to be crazy, Dan. This is something that I thought would never get opened just because of all these possibilities of conflict. Not so much, hey, let's pay the kids. And reading the rules on it, Dan, also, the rules are very, very sketchy. They're very unclear at this point what exactly. The only thing anybody can agree on, from what I've read so far, is that you can't pay the player for his performance on the field. But other than that, I mean, like, there's events like meet and greets already with players that the school hosts. What now happens at an event like that? Where do you walk up to the player? I mean, at UCF, we have them. The quarterback line is usually the longest one. The event has ended before where there was still 100 people in line.
Yeah.
But are they now able to charge for those autographs? Or if it's a school event, are they not allowed to charge? The lines are very gray in this whole deal, Dan, and it's a scary world college football and college sports has gotten itself into.
Well, and to look at this, speaking with Jason Lucas from PR to the press and everything that he has done in the sports world this morning, speaking on name, image, and likeness, or the acronym NIL that you're seeing a lot out there right now. The reality of what you just said, what if there's an event put on by the school and three of the players charge for their autographs, but the rest of the team doesn't? Does the rest of the team not show up? Do the players that charge not show up? What's the line look like? You know, when you're having a meet and greet, and how does that work out? If Mackenzie Milton's, if he's $20 a pop, and the running backs and the wide receivers, they're going to want a piece of that pie as well. And then you just said something. They can make money as long as they're not paid for what they've done on the field or the court of play. They can make money as long as it's not for their performance. But guess what, Jay? In an inadvertent way, it is. Because if you're not a successful quarterback in college football, you're not getting paid. So they don't want to put you on the front of their law office doors if you're the third string guy. So you are getting paid for your performance. You will be getting paid for your performance. Because if I'm not the starting quarterback, why are they going to give me the money? So you are getting paid for your performance. This is where it's gray upon gray upon gray upon gray. This is the 50 shades of the NCAA. And we're not going to have the answers that we want today, tomorrow, or the next day. You're paying amateurs. Now, again, to all my college athletes and future athletes and former college athletes, let me be clear. The NCAA does make money off of you. The NCAA is a non-for-profit situation. But when you open the door to this, I said this last night on the show. Let's take UCF as an example. UCF's quarterbacks are both fighting for the starting job and for the Ford sponsorship. They start fighting in the locker room. Wide receivers start choosing sides. This wide receiver likes this quarterback because he throws to him more often. So now he's saying that. Then the quarterback says, hey, guess what, bro? Make me look good in practice. Let's do this, this, and this. And I'm going to give you a cut of my Ford thing. Now we start doing backdoor deals. Now we start helping each other out. And think about this. The soccer player goes to the same Ford dealership. Ford says, we'll give you $2,000. They say to the football player, we'll give you $20,000. So now the soccer team and the football team are fighting with each other. And now the families are fighting with each other. Now the agent's representing them both, and they're both saying to the agent, why is there $18,000, the soccer guy's going, why is there $18,000 in discrepancy here? I'm the best soccer player in the country. Why am I getting treated like this? So a team will never have to play another team in athletics again because they'll be beating each other up every day. You will never have to compete with another team because the school's teams, the programs within the athletic department will be fighting with each other, which will make the AD's job extremely difficult. There'll be fights on campus physically, potentially at times. There'll be fights in the locker room. You will be so beaten up in your own locker room and on your own campus that you'll never have to play another school again. That's where we're heading. So I don't know how to... There's stipends that players get right now. They are getting paid something. And I'm not sitting here saying that players deserve to be treated the way that they're treated when the NCAA makes an ungodly amount of money. But what I am saying is, when every player can be an independent contractor, which I know what it's like to be that, when you go to a radio station and you're an independent contractor, you can make whatever you want, and you got to do this, that, whatever. If every single player in college athletics is now their own LLC, how does that push forward the notion of team athletics? And how does a team stay unified when everybody's fighting for the same deals in the same community? There's only a finite amount of businesses. And when this player gets this and this player doesn't, when this team gets this and this team doesn't, how do we not have infighting? How do we not have team by team fighting? How do we not have something break out in the middle of an economics class over a Ford dealership, over a lawyer part? And Ford, I'm using it as an example, but how do we not have an issue upon an issue, on top of an issue, around the corner from an issue, by doing what we're doing right now? How does this not blow up in everybody's face? How does this promote team athletics?
Yeah. And basically what the picture you just painted there illustrates the word I used right at the end of what I said, scary, because you just don't know where this is going to go. And it could go to some very dark places and turn some good, talented football teams into teams off the field issues. And that is where this thing is scary. And that's where you look at it and you're like, man, I mean, these kids could be in class fighting each other. And that's the other thing about it too, Dan, is it's another demand on a college kid's time. Now, these kids are going to class. Yeah. They're doing their homework. They're going to practice once, sometimes twice a day.
We are here live at the Pizza Man Pub here this week. It's called Off the Rails with Al, and Al Romano, somebody who has won a national championship.
And then collecting those fees and then trying to account for those, because, of course, they're going to be taxed on it. So they got to figure all that out, too. They've got to pay a tax guy or whatever they're doing. They're going to have all these responsibilities that they never have had before. That's why it's so crazy to see that they've opened this box to these kids that are 18
here
to 22.
To Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, their one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you and hanging out here inside of the Cafe Kubal.
I'll tell you right now,
they've used more than one,
I didn't start being serious about life until I was 25. So at the age of 22, I can't even imagine myself being an entrepreneur and trying to keep up with my finances and going to class and going to practice and taking those beatings you take between the game and practice and trying to be an entrepreneur. So I don't know how these college kids are going to do this. This is a lot of pressure, a lot of stress that they're going to be putting themselves under, especially the kids that are on that upper echelon of players that are those all-star kids that are, going to go to the NFL. Those guys are going to have a lot more pressure and a lot more demand on their time than they've ever had before. And maybe that's something they didn't think about.
Yeah. And it's just, this is going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot, and it's got more questions than answers. And a year ago, it had more questions than answers when I was talking about it. So it's just nobody's answered the questions. That's the issue I'm very concerned about as we step forward. So speaking of stepping forward, we'll take a step aside, and then we'll step into our conversation about the college football playoffs 12-team model. Does UCF and the American Athletic Conference finally get a chance to be regarded as a college football Division I AFBS team with the expansion of the playoff? Will we finally get some fairness, God forbid, in college football? We'll talk about that right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt inside the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal located for you on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital in downtown Syracuse. So we thank them for all that they're doing to try and make miracles come about for our beautiful kids in our community and beyond, and we thank them for that very, very much so. Also get to Cafe Kubal out on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and their newest location in their drive-thru on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in Sweetheart Corners. You'll find them right there as well. And, speaking of Golisano, I just want to thank everybody this morning that are doing the jobs that every single day are saving lives or attempting to save lives. So I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. It never goes forgotten or unappreciated. So if you ever feel that way, my apologies on you feeling that way, and I hope that you don't ever feel that way again. We appreciate you for all you do. With that being stated, Jason Lucas here with us. Jason, you brought up a point when we were talking, during this fast break off the air, and I want you to share that, that it's as easy as a retweet. I want you to share that thought.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's real simple. It's real simple. If a player is engaged with, it could be a car dealership, it could be a Best Buy, it could be anything. It's as simple as them retweeting them. Hey, every time you retweet us, we're going to give you $500. Oh, okay, cool. Because the players have a bunch of followers, and the player following is also going to factor into who is targeted for these deals. So it could be as simple as a retweet, Dan, and it doesn't require any work or filming a commercial or anything. It could just be real simple, and it's pretty awesome if you're the kid. That would require a lot less work, and maybe that's just the PR guy and me thinking outside the box. Maybe nobody's thought of that yet, but yeah, simple as a retweet, brother.
And in the famous words of Jay-Z, hashtags and retweets, there's 160 characters in these streets. So we never know what we're going to get. Final thing here, Jason, we could talk on a lot of stuff, and we will definitely be talking about a lot of different things, but the college football playoff 12-team model expansion could be coming. This is one of the good news things about college athletics, at least in my opinion, is that we could have an opportunity to see some, fairness. Oh my goodness. Or we're going to see, 7 SEC teams. But we could see some fairness happening in a proposal for the college football playoff to expand to 12 teams, and it being, and I appreciate that very much. So the management committee, which is made up of 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick, will ask the presidents and chancellors to, quote, authorize the solicitation of feedback and begin feasibly assessments of any new formats, end quote. So we're looking at it right now, gathering information, looking at what we could do, and where we go from here. The proposal continues to go through different chains. Now, it was made after 2 years of research by a subcommittee of Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, as well as Swarbrick, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, and Mountain West Commissioner Craig Thompson. Now, the meetings in Chicago were the first time the entire management committee was discussing this in person, and so we're looking at this right now. Now, it does not include guarantees for conference champions. It calls for a bracket to include the 6 highest-ranked conference champions, plus the 6 remaining highest-ranked teams as determined by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. There would be no limit on the number of participants from a conference. So, once again, this bracket would be the 6 highest-ranked conference champions and the 6 remaining highest-ranked teams. So, 6 highest-ranked conference champions, that's going to be the autonomous 5, Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and ACC. But you would imagine that the American Athletic Conference would now be in the college football playoff, because if you're taking the 6th highest ranked conference champions, you would imagine that the one of the 6 is going to be coming out of the American. So, what are your thoughts on the 12-team model? Do you think that this will finally open the door to the American? Is, Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the American, is pounding the pavement, finally working? What's your take on this?
Let me just jump out here and say, first of all, thank you, former UCF athletic director Danny White, for boastfully claiming a national championship after we beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl. Thank you, Scott Frost, for directing that team to a 13-0 perfect season. Thank you, Josh Heupel, for coming into UCF and going 12-0 the next season, only losing 1 game to LSU, but carrying that banner for the Power 6 to finally happen. And that's exactly what it is. The top 6 conference champions, that is a Power 6 model that now allows guys like Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, guys like Gus Malzahn at UCF to say to a recruit, hey, next year I think we got a shot at winning the national championship. You want to come be a part of that? And it's freaking realistic, Dan. I can't even imagine that this day has finally come. It's the greatest thing for anybody to be able to say, you want to come be a part of a national championship team, because now that fantasy and claiming it, no, it's reality. We can actually play for it, because if we're one of the top 12 teams in the country, There's no reason why we can't get a shot and win 4 ball games and win the whole thing.
Yeah, and this now the College Football Playoff Committee, when they are like, okay, put UCF at 13 5 weeks out because we can't move them from 13 to 4. They'll never go up 9 spots, so let's move them up here to 8. Then let's move them to 5. Now let's move them to 6. They set themselves up to never have to put them in the top 4. Well, now, if they're in the top 12, guess what? They playing. So, that's in the highest ranked conference champions. That should solidify them. And then looking at the 6 after that. So, this in and of itself, in the last few years, could feature Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, UCF, Ohio State, and on and on and on and on and on. And I think having this model is good because if you don't have this model, then half of Division I AFBS football has no point in playing. And because it's laughable. There's 41 bowl games. 41. I can start one tomorrow called the Roto-Rooter Clean Your... I could literally have the Roto-Rooter Bowl and nobody could stop it. I could have the Gastric Bypass Bowl. I could have whatever I want. I could have the Cereal Bowl. And if I have enough money, I can play it. So, it's ridiculous what it's become. And so people look to the College Football Playoff, as they should, to determine a national champion, as they should. But 4 teams is not enough. And I told you, Jason, what was going to change this. What was going to change this model was enough years of not all of the quote-unquote Power 5 getting in this. UCF's best friend since the institution of the College Football Playoff was the Pac-12 not being involved, the Big 12 not getting as much respect. Their best, and Notre Dame saying we deserve to be in even though we're in independent and we're not even a part of the autonomy group. The greatest thing that ever happened to UCF in the American Athletic Conference was having a 4-team playoff because it caused the autonomous 5 group to say, we're not represented. Just by sheer math, there's 5 conferences and only 4 spots. And if half of those spots taken up by the SEC and then another spot by Clemson, there's only one chance for the other 3 conferences to get in. The best friend of UCF in the American Athletic Conference was the fact that there was not enough spaces for the autonomy group.
Yeah, it's crazy. You just got me thinking backwards. The last 4 years I've been on your show beating the drum for this thing to open up, and I can't believe we're finally talking about it being a reality. But you're exactly right. And it's what we've talked about in the past. It's that 4-team model. Not only did it not allow for all the conferences, all the Power 5 to be involved, there were times when only 3 or 2 conferences got a team in, and then the year that UCF goes undefeated, Notre Dame gets in and gets blown out 31-0 in the first round. So, and we've said it a million times, how could you do worse than 0 points?
Yeah.
It's time for it to open up. The lower divisions have had their playoffs for years, which their playoffs are a lot bigger than 12 teams. I think theirs are like 20 or 22 teams. But it's been needing to happen for a lot of years to where the big conferences all get together and, hey, if you're not as big of a conference, you still get a shot, just like in the NCAA tournament in basketball. There's no reason for everybody not to get a shot at a national championship, to play those playoff games, for those kids to experience that big game atmosphere at the end of the season, because they do work so hard. So there's no reason for them not to. So I'm so happy, man. I don't even have a whole lot to say on it other than I'm just really happy that my school, UCF, gets to go out and say, hey, you want to come be a part of a national championship? And I'm not saying claim one. I'm saying let's go. Let's win 4 ball games at the end of the season and let's be champs.
Yeah, and now a 12-team format, this should be, and again, like you said, we've been beating the drum for so long that we didn't even realize that that if we stopped playing the drums, somebody else was playing music. You know what I mean? It's finally coming to fruition. People are finally listening, it sounds like, and what a beautiful thing. And I can't give credit to the NCAA because I'm paraphrasing, but Mark Emmert's famous words during Corona was, "I have no jurisdiction over college football." So he admitted that he's the president of nothing. So, with that being said, I can't thank the NCAA for this one, but I can thank the College Football Playoff Committee as they continue to, they need to expand. And again, this is what it was going to be. Nobody was going to break the door down until Oregon and Texas, and I mean, schools had to yell that were not in the college football playoff, that were in the autonomy group. It's how it had to be. And so I'm happy to see that we're moving in the right direction. Every path that they've had, everything that they've had to cross, every checkpoint up to this point has cleared them to go to 12. Now, it's a process that will continue to go throughout the summer and into the fall, but we could have a realistic thing happening, and then I think they said it would be a year or two before they can implement it. But every single checkpoint, they have gone past it. And so it looks like we're going from 4 to 12. I would have been happy with any expansion, but I'm now very happy to have 12. This is something that we've talked about for so long, Jay. And so if and when this comes to fruition and the American is finally involved, then I can sleep sweetly knowing that the drum that I was playing this whole time, when I stopped playing it, off in the distance somewhere, someone in the College Football Playoff Committee played a little drum back to me. So it's a beautiful thing when that stuff can happen. As always, brother, I appreciate you. We have so much to talk about. I'll have you back on the show. I'll have to very soon because we've opened the door and there's a lot of great things to discuss. But thank you for your time in the NFL, the College Football Playoff, and all of the goings-on of the NCAA, from transferring to name, image, and likeness, a.k.a. NIL. I appreciated this conversation very much so this morning, and always your expertise from both sides of the coin, from PR to the press. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your time this morning, and I really I fully understand that we could probably do a Jerry Lewis telethon on the conversations we just opened up today. So
my pleasure, brother, as always. And take care.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. That coming from Jason Lucas once again here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We'll take a step aside inside of MonPawsPopcorn.com. So it's poppin'. Go there right now. Sometimes my mouth doesn't want to talk. Use the online promo code DT20 at MaandPawsPopcorn.com. Use that promo code DT20 anywhere in the 50 beautiful United States of America, and you can get 20% off your order from MaandPawsPopcorn.com. We'll take a step aside for a fast break inside the Cafe Kubal Studios. Dave Pasiak comes up next, and guess what? Half of the NBA Finals is already decided, and the other half is dead even. What a day to talk about the NBA. Dave Pasiak, longtime basketball coach, analyst, and fan of the game, joins us next, right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening live, you're watching live on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, being shared on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You just heard from Jimmer Sikowski at Chick-fil-A Cicero. I want to proudly welcome, as I can officially say it here on July 1st, I would like to welcome Chick-fil-A Clay, as we have both locations in Central New York with us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Proud to be partnered with Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. You will find Chick-fil-A Cicero on 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, New York, and you will find Chick-fil-A Clay right on Route 31 in Clay, New York, right across from Wegmans, right when you get off the highway. So a big shout out to both Chick-fil-A's and a proud welcome officially Chick-fil-A Clay to the family. With that being stated, inside the Cafe Kubal studios, it's time to jump into our conversation with Dave Pasiak, continuing the conversation of the NBA playoffs. As we've had Dave here, a longtime basketball head coach and analyst, as well as a fan of the game, joins us every single week during the playoffs to speak on the goings-on of the NBA. And a perfect timing for Dave to come on the show, as the West has been decided and the East is dead even. So we're seeing two ends of the spectrum. Phoenix commandingly heading to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1993, and the Hawks tying the Bucks to put the series at 2-2. With that being said, plenty of conversation in the East and the West with Dave Pasiak. Dave, how you doing today?
Great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And Dave, let's start in Phoenix. Let's start with last night. What are your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns, 130-103, sending themselves with a 27-point victory to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1993?
Well, we've talked about this a little bit, in the previous weeks. It just feels like everything has kind of fallen in line for the Suns. In terms of, they've caught a couple of breaks with teams not being entirely healthy. They caught a little bit of a break on the timing of the whole Chris Paul COVID protocol thing. It just feels like, and they're playing really well. Playing really, really well. They seem to be like the team that's peaking right now, and they seem to be the team that's been the healthiest and had the least amount of misfortune in that regard. And it just feels like things are going in a direction that's been favorable to Phoenix right now.
Yeah, how much of this is Phoenix and how much of this is good fortune? Where would you balance it?
It's both. It's both. Like I said, you look back through the NBA playoffs and whatnot. Even the most recent dominant run. Golden State, I mean, they benefited from a lot of good fortune along the way. So I think that, through the history of the NBA, like a lot of, but especially in basketball, but in a lot of major sports, if you can stay healthy, and be peaking at the right time, that's so critical to, to making a championship run. But at the same time, you've got to be good enough and playing well enough to take advantage of those breaks and those opportunities. So I think Phoenix is both.
Yeah, in Phoenix, and again, like you said, I mean, things break. I mean, for you, they break in your direction, and that's something that goes along with everything else that's in the grand scheme of things. We look at Phoenix's team, and of course, everybody wants to talk about Booker, but what can you say about the Phoenix? I mean, well, let's start here. Chris Paul. It's been a long time coming. Paul's been a Clipper. Paul's been a Rocket. Paul's been all over the place, been a New Orleans Hornet. And here he is as a Phoenix Sun, scores 41 points, and is heading on to the NBA Finals, defeating the team he used to play for. 35 minutes, 41 points, 7 for 8 from three-point range, 16 of 24 from the field, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and no turnovers. A fantastic stat line sends him into the NBA Finals. What can you say about Chris Paul's long time coming and the irony and kind of the poetry of defeating the team that you used to play for to get to the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly the Chris Paul narrative has been one of kind of the dominant themes of this playoffs and everything. The thing I actually found interesting is that the Paul George narrative was really could have been pretty similar, but nobody was talking about that. But he's a similar stature player and a similar point in his career. But Chris Paul has been he certainly closed it out with a huge game last night. I think the one thing by getting to the finals and now if they play Atlanta, there's going to be expectation that they should win it. If they play Milwaukee and Giannis is healthy, it's a little bit more of a pick-em situation. But if they play Atlanta or another man Bucks team, now all of a sudden there's expectation on the part of Phoenix. But so I think if that happens, then I think Chris Paul, to really elevate him to that next level of player and cement his his legacy, I think they have to close it out and win it. But it's been, I mean, like you said, I mean, you chronicled that he's been around the block with a bunch of teams and been one of the premier guys in the league, and he's finally getting his opportunity to play in the NBA Finals stage. So I do think one of the things that's a little bit unfortunate is some of the narrative is almost like, well, it's Chris Paul and a bunch of scrubs, and that's far from the truth. We've talked pretty much every week about how, Phoenix really springboarded into this season from the bubble, and, they went up 2-0 in this series without Chris Paul. So between Booker and Ayton has been one of the, Ayton has really emerged in the playoffs, along with some other guys, Trae Young being one of the prime examples, but, he's a guy that has kind of solidified and justified, him being picked where he was, and some of the early skepticism about whether, what kind of player he was going to emerge into. And then, and Crowder's been really good. So, Phoenix is certainly, like I said, it'd be very interesting to see how they react in the finals, when there's expectation that, they're the team to beat, especially if they see a little bit of adversity along the way. So, great season for the Suns, and now they got again, caught a little bit of a break. The West was a couple of games ahead of the East anyway, and now they've closed it out, and we're looking at least 6 and possibly 7 in the East. And another thing that, like we've talked about, that that rest and recovery time in the postseason, especially with the compressed schedule, condensed schedule during the regular season. That is extremely valuable at this time of year. So, everything seems to be breaking right for the Suns.
Speaking here with longtime coach and analyst Dave Pasiak on the 2021 NBA playoffs. And as we take a look at these playoffs and Phoenix moving on, Paul George had some words after. And what would have happened if Kawhi was healthy? He said, we'd be going on. So, quote, we'd be going on. This series would be a lot different. Talk about one of the best players in the league being out, yet we were inches away from getting to the next round. So definitely it's a what if on this. Fact of the matter is we didn't do enough to win, and that's the reason we're going home. End quote. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, he said we'd be going on if they had Kawhi, but then he also said, listen, we didn't do enough. How much do you put on that? Just like with the Toronto Raptors winning a championship and they say, oh, well, Klay Thompson wasn't healthy. So, I mean, it's something you can't control. You play the players you play. So what is your thought on what Paul George had to say, that we'd be moving on if we had Kawhi? And also, he does state the matter of we didn't do enough to move on, and that's why we're going home.
Well, I mean, I think he's pretty accurate on all fronts, to be honest with you. I think not that they would have automatically won the series if they had Kawhi, but you certainly got to like their chances a whole lot better. But at the same time, like we talked about earlier in the conversation, that, staying healthy and catching those breaks. I mean, a couple of games ago, it looked like Milwaukee was on cruise control to the finals. Now Giannis is hurt, and changes the complexion of that series. I think you can look back through NBA history, and there are a lot of instances of teams winning a championship or making deep runs in the playoffs, and they've been the beneficiaries of some good fortune along the way in terms of key people on the opponent's team not being there. So it's something that comes with the turf. I think this year it's been kind of put under a microscope a little bit more, and maybe been more prevalent, due to the quick turnaround and the compressed season and whatnot. But I mean, it's something that has, it's part of the sport and something that you have to deal with. And like Paul George ultimately said, they didn't make enough plays.
Yeah, so I mean that's where we're sitting at right now, and guys get injured and things happen, and unfortunately, you have to play with who you got is just what you're faced with, and that's what happens on this side here. Tyronn Lue had some words to say as well. He said, when you look at this and the realization that the season was over, he said, quote, "It is a shock. I think it's a shock to a lot of guys in that locker room. It just tells you a lot about the team. Like, no matter who is playing, we still feel like every night we have a chance to win, no matter who is on the floor. I thought we ran out of gas, and first thing goes when you get tired and fatigued is mentally. That first half we made a lot of mistakes defensively, a lot of mistakes coming out of timeouts, or just play calls in general, just not there mentally." End quote. Your thoughts on Tyronn Lue's take, and then, well, I'll get into some more after that, but your thoughts on what Tyronn Lue had to say of, I think we just ran out of gas, and the first thing to go is your mental side.
Well, I think that's a valid point, and I think when you're in this situation that a team like the Clippers was, you're trying to kind of fight from underneath and get back in the series, down 2-0, down 3-1, that kind of thing. So you're fighting from underneath, and you're a little bit shorthanded, a lot shorthanded, actually, without Kawhi, and then Zubac, who kind of had his moments in the series, he's out. So you have very, very little margin for error to begin with. And the mental piece and the staying mentally sharp is a big part of that equation. And, I think there's a lot of validity to what Ty Lue said about when you get fatigued, sometimes the mental piece is the first thing to go.
Yeah, and moving forward from here, I mean, what is your take? Because Kawhi is free to move about the country. Does he stay in LA or does he chance himself somewhere else?
Well, I mean, I think he leaves a little money on the table if he goes somewhere else, but he's at the point where, like a lot of the upper echelon guys, they're willing to do, willing to leave money on the table to kind of hold the organization's, feet to the fire to, for an opportunity to win. I think, it's highly likely that he stays in LA. I'm sure we'll hear about like the Knicks trying to make a run at him, and maybe some other teams trying to make a run at him. But I would be pretty surprised if he's anywhere other than LA when next season rolls around.
That coming from Dave Pasiak, longtime basketball coach and analyst here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora this morning, speaking on the NBA playoffs and stories surrounding the NBA. Tyronn Lue, your thoughts about him as a coach? Are you pleasantly surprised? Is he what you thought he would be? What's your take? I mean, Tyronn Lue was a guard in the NBA that was in the NBA for a bit, but never really was a guy that maybe got the spotlight. Does he deserve the spotlight as a coach? What do you think about him from coach to coach? What do you think about Tyronn Lue?
Well, I think me personally, I think he's made a believer out of me. I think one of his biggest strength, I believe and have felt it for a while, is kind of keeping his team on the even keel and focused on the prize in the face of adversity. Like I think he's back in the Cleveland days, when they came from 3-1 down and kind of kept the boat in the water when things were not looking too promising for the Cavaliers. And then I think this year with the Clippers, he's done the same thing. A team that was in a little bit of trouble and in every round of the playoffs, and was able to make some technical and tactical adjustments. But I think most significantly, kind of was able to keep his team together and keep them competing. Even in this series, they're down 3-1 and to go into Phoenix and win Game 5, that was pretty impressive. So, I think he's a guy that probably doesn't get enough of his just due, because the championship in Cleveland is always going to be attributed to, to LeBron first and foremost, which it should. But I also think, Ty Lue, kind of like, Phil Jackson for years and years. I mean, being able to manage that and keep your team moving in the right direction, especially when you've got star players and egos and expectation and all that. I think there's a skill in and of itself there. So, I think he's probably somewhat unappreciated. And, he's one of the guys, you think about what he did with this team this year versus, some of the, nobody can say that the Clippers underachieved given, the injury situation with Kawhi and everything. I think he probably got about as much out of that team as you were going to get versus, I think Doc Rivers is a guy who maybe his shine comes off a little bit this year because, when he was with the Clippers, I think a lot of people felt like they didn't achieve what they were capable of.
So you look to Doc now and your Philadelphia 76ers. What's your thoughts on Doc Rivers currently? Where's his stock?
Well, I mean, I like Doc Rivers and everything, and I thought he's a solid hire for the Sixers. I thought it at the time and think it now. But at the same time, Doc has kind of skated on what happened with it. I mean, the Sixers got to be, sick over, and same thing with the Utah Jazz in the West. But Sixers got to be sick over, being eliminated. I mean, because everything was right there and in place and everything. And it seems like the lazy analysis and the easy analysis just blame everything on Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons was not very good in that series with Atlanta. But Ben Simmons wasn't the guy running, George Hill out there in Game 7 for 20-plus minutes when he hasn't done anything all year. And, Ben Simmons wasn't the guy who went 0 for the fourth quarter a couple of games earlier, and they had a chance to really put Atlanta away. So, I think, like, when the dust settles and you really take a look at this season with Doc, I think, taking them to the top record in the East, and I think Daryl Morey deserves a lot of credit because I think the roster makeup is better. But, everybody thought Doc would be this huge upgrade over Brett Brown, and you look at it, I mean, Doc got knocked out probably at least around sooner than his talent would indicate, and I don't think you can say that, like, any of Brett Brown's Sixer teams got bounced by a team that wasn't as good as them. So, so I think there's a little shine off of Doc this year, but I think Sixers certainly could do a whole lot worse.
That coming from Dave Pasiak, longtime basketball coach and analyst, hanging out with us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora this morning, where sports meets life inside, of course, the Cafe Kubal studios. Dave, looking to the other side of things here, we have a tied series. Atlanta came into Milwaukee and got the win the first game, and it kind of maybe shook a few people to think, why would Milwaukee lose that first game at home? And then all of a sudden Milwaukee responds and wins 2 in a row and has a chance to go up 3-1. And the notion is, and I kind of thought, Milwaukee's going to, basically take him now and, throw him kind of over their shoulder and hold him down. I mean, there was that notion that Milwaukee was really going to grab onto this thing, and then Atlanta ties the series. What are your thoughts on how this arm wrestle has continuously gone back and forth, and we're sitting here today with a game that's going to happen, for those of you watching and listening live, tonight, Thursday, July 1st at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT, Atlanta at Milwaukee. The series is tied 2-2, and Atlanta goes back to Milwaukee where they were 1-1 last time. What are your thoughts on where things sit right now in this series that look like, oh my goodness, I can't believe Atlanta won game 1, to, Milwaukee just course corrected and won 2 games in a row, to now Atlanta's saying, no, it's 2-2. I mean, this tug of war is dead even. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, basically comes down to what's Giannis' status going to be for the next 2 games or 3 games if it goes 7. I think if he can play at anywhere near, his anywhere near an effective level, Milwaukee's the better team when everybody's on the floor. I think Milwaukee's the better team. But when you take Giannis off the floor, everything changes. Everything changes because you're talking about a top 3 or 4 player in the league, and you pull him off the floor. I think that that injury is as impactful as any of the many injuries we've seen in the playoffs. So I think the ultimate outcome of the series is going to depend on whether Giannis plays, and if he plays, how effective he can be. I'll tell you, when that injury happened the other night, I thought it was done. The way it looked on the replay and everything. And so I think he's very, very fortunate that he came out with a report yesterday saying, no structural damage and everything. So I think the thing that happens when he's off the floor, obviously, if he can't play or can't play effectively, puts more of a burden on everybody else, especially Middleton and Holiday. But I think that's going to be a really heavy lift for Milwaukee, because part of the thing that allows Middleton and allows Holiday to be effective and be threats for the Bucks is the fact that teams have to account for Giannis. So if he's not out there now, teams can kind of focus their attention to a greater degree on Middleton and on Holiday. Bucks are in a tough spot. So, they may be able to get 2 out of 3, without Giannis or without a very effective Giannis. But I don't think they're not going to beat Phoenix without him at something close to his peak level.
What did Atlanta show you in Game 4? And what did you take from them specifically when they evened out this series in that game in Atlanta? What was your overall kind of analysis of what the Hawks did in that matchup?
I mean, Atlanta's got a lot of firepower, and I think, a little bit of that narrative too has been false in the playoffs, that, it's Trae Young carrying a bunch of other guys. And, Trae Young has had some great moments, and he's been spectacular and everything. But, if you go back and look in the series, I mean, Atlanta, their point differential with Trae Young out of the game has been better than with him in the game in more than half of their playoff contests. Against Philly, they were better when Young was on the bench in 4 out of the 7 games, including 2 of the wins. So I think they've got guys like, Herter and Collins are the 2 guys that have really, really impressed me for Atlanta in the postseason. I think they have kind of stepped up and elevated their games. And Bogdanovic, I think, is a big threat. Lou Williams has been the best 6-man in the NBA for a while. Capella, I think so. I mean, Atlanta, they made some moves coming into this season, trying to put themselves in a contending spot. And I think, the key move during the season, the coaching change from Pierce to McMillan, kind of allowed them to flip the switch, and they've progressed and everything. So, Atlanta's they've got a lot of offensive weapons, and that's why I say I don't know. If Giannis can't play, I don't know that the Bucks have the combination of being good enough defensively and having enough firepower to keep up with the Hawks. I think it becomes kind of a pick 'em 2 out of 3 without Giannis versus, with Giannis playing. I think Milwaukee's still a much better team.
But, everybody focusing on Giannis's injury, Trae Young doesn't play in Game 4, and they win by almost 30 points. What does that say about Atlanta? I mean, everybody's saying, Giannis isn't out there. The Bucks aren't going to be full go. If they don't have him, there's no way they can win. Trae Young was sidelined with an injury, and we saw the team step up, and Atlanta have their largest margin of victory in this series. So what does that say about Atlanta?
Well, it's like I said, Atlanta's a lot more than just Trae Young. I think the media, the social media narrative, and the media narrative is like it's all about Trae Young. And Atlanta's done well without significant contribution from Trae Young, at other points in the postseason. So I think Atlanta losing Trae Young, while it hurts them because he's really, he's a guy who's really kind of come into his own during this postseason, certainly hurts them. It's nowhere near the same magnitude injury as Milwaukee losing Giannis or the Clippers losing Kawhi. Trae Young is nowhere near that tier of player yet. He may be at some point in his career, but so I think it answers your question. I think it points to the overall balance of Atlanta, and I also think again coming back to, I think Nate McMillan gets credit for adjustment. I mean, he threw Reddish and a couple guys out there that had barely played, and they gave him effective minutes the other night. So the other thing that I think Atlanta capitalized on at the same time Milwaukee kind of, I don't want to say folded up shop, but took a big hit, is when Giannis went out. If you recall in that game, the game kind of was turning in Milwaukee's favor a little bit, and it felt like the Bucks, had kind of figured things out, and the game was going in their direction. Giannis went down with the injury. They take him off the floor, and Atlanta immediately went on like a 10-0 or 12-0 run and basically put the game away, pushed the lead back up to 18, 20 points, and it was game over. so much credit to Atlanta, and I think, they caught Milwaukee a little bit shell-shocked, and they took advantage. Like, you'll see situations in some games at all levels of sports. Star player goes out of the game, you think game's over, and then the team that's the beneficiary of that, they relax a little bit, and all of a sudden you still have a ball game. And Atlanta, that didn't happen. Giannis went out of the game, and they put their foot on the accelerator and put the game away. So, much credit to them for that.
Yeah, in seeing this, I want to make mention of one of the guys that stepped up, Lou Williams. He was a Clipper. Ironically, he was a Clipper this season, 2020 and 2021. He was a Clipper was in 2020, 2021. He went there to Atlanta. If he had stayed in LA, he'd be going home right now. But instead, he's a Hawk that's moving forward and a Hawk that had to step up. What can you say about the move of Lou Williams from the Clippers to the Hawks that happened in the very recent history here, and what he was able to do to step up without Trae Young out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, if he was still in LA, maybe LA wouldn't be going home now. But he might have given him that little bit that they needed. But anyways, he's a guy, Lou Williams, I think people like to use the term professional scorer. And, he's a guy that can get buckets. He reminds me back in the day of, like, if you go back to the bad boy Pistons era of, like, the Vinnie Johnson type player that can kind of come off the bench and get you instant offense in a particular game. And it was interesting. He had his first start of the year the other night with Young being out. But, he's a guy who, like, throughout his career has really shown the ability to heat up and get a lot of points in a lot of, in a short amount of time. And he's really an ideal six-man, second-team type player because, when he comes into the game in that kind of role, and that's why he's been six-man of the year a bunch of times, comes in the game in that kind of role, that kind of situation. One, he accepts it and he seems to deal with it from an ego standpoint pretty well, which not all guys do. But also, when he comes in as the primary scorer with the second unit, he's got some rope and some leeway to do what Lou Williams does, and become a volume shooter, volume scorer, and everything. Whereas, playing with a first unit, where he's maybe the third or fourth option on a first unit, he might be more constricted and less effective. So he's a guy who really has kind of found his niche in the NBA for a long period of time, and the New York Knicks, they could use a guy like him sorely, and there's a lot of teams in the NBA could use a guy like him that can bring them instant offense off the bench and turn a game in a hurry.
Yeah, we look at the fact that really playing not a lot of minutes, 11 minutes against Philly, and 6 points, shot 50% from the field, did not attempt a three in the game. And in the series against Milwaukee, in 4 games, he had 3 points in 12 minutes, 20% from the field, 5 points in 13 minutes, 33.3% from the field, 5 points in 18 minutes, 33.3%. And then Trae Young doesn't play, and he's got to go from playing, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, 13 minutes to playing 35 minutes. He scores 21 in 35, 77.8% from the field, 66.7% from three, 83.3% from the charity stripe, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, and only 1 turnover in the game. They literally called on this man to play double the time pretty much, and with double the time, he more than doubled his field goal percentage and more than doubled his points. Is this something that you think is sustainable for him if they need it? And what do you think about the fact that, when they called upon Lou to not be, the third option on the first team, but to be one of the first options with Trae Young gone, just what it means to you, what you saw him do, and if you think it's sustainable if he needs to?
Well, would it be sustainable over a full season? Probably not. That's why, he's become like the classic six-man in the NBA. But can he sustain it over the remainder of this series and potentially into the finals. Quite possibly, probably. But I mean, again, he's a guy that, in any given game, in any given situation, he can heat up and really carry the offensive load. But that's been, that's been kind of his history where, one night you're not going to get a ton out of him, but then the next night, he can go off and get you 25. So, so it's not, other than, his minutes were down a little bit this, in Atlanta from what they had been with the Clippers this year. And I think part of that is just, Father Time catching up to him to a certain degree. But, he's certainly, as he showed last game, he's certainly capable of, in a given game, having a big offensive night, a big offensive explosion, and kind of keeping his team in the game or carrying his team.
And we see this series move forward here. I know that it smarts for you, right? It hurts because no matter what, it's not your Philadelphia 76ers. But when you're seeing a series tied 2-2, knowing it's going at least 6, if not all 7 games, is this the Eastern Conference Finals that one can hope for without a dog in the race, so to speak? Fear the deer versus believe Atlanta. What is your take about seeing these two teams and knowing that we're going to get at least 6 out of it? I mean, does it still make you excited as a fan? Do you feel that these are two deserving teams? How do you look at the grand scope of things in a year that obviously has been very interesting with COVID and a shortened off season, if really any off season? Are we getting a good showcase in the East, in your opinion?
I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, the two teams that are playing, the teams that are playing deserve to be. I mean, the team that wins is the team that deserves to win. That's the way sports work. So I think that, hopefully we get, good exciting game tonight and, game 6 and potentially game 7. But, I think Atlanta, can be a lot of fun to watch. And Milwaukee, I think both teams can be really fun to watch. I think we'll come back around to it. The whole, so many marquee guys missing time in the playoffs, I think hasn't necessarily been a great look for the league. And yes, there's guys out every year, and people have to deal with injuries, but I can't quantify this, but from a perception and a feeling standpoint, it feels like this season has been more extreme than in any recent year. So, so I don't think that has necessarily been a good thing for the league. Because people, at the end of the day, people want to see the best teams and the best players playing on the biggest stage. And, and now, especially if Giannis misses time, Kawhi missed time, other guys have missed time, key guys. And so I think the fan gets robbed of a little bit of that in the playoffs. But I think as far as, the game and the team itself, both of the East semis went to 7 games, and this series is going at least 6. So I think from that standpoint, from a just enjoyable basketball standpoint, I think you got to be happy with it.
Yeah, coming here from Dave Pasiak, basketball coach and analyst, and here with us this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and throughout the NBA playoffs here. Dave, any notes, any final notes that we didn't touch upon? Speaking on these final 4 teams, anything else that's on your mind, or a coaching hire that's on your mind, or a coaching non-hire that's on your mind? Besides what we've spoken about in the NBA, what else is kind of top of mind for you right now?
Well, I think, the coaching movement in the NBA is really, it's been some interesting moves, and I think some moves that, how do I put it? A couple that are perplexing. The Jason Kidd hire is one that like personally, I'm not super big on. I think the hire in Boston is a that's a little bit of a roll of the dice move, and I think it's interesting that Brad Stevens, like moving into the VP of basketball and the more of a front office role, and being new to that role. I think it's somewhat interesting that he would go with a first time head coach versus bringing in somebody with more of a proven head coaching track record. I think the Billups hire in Portland is interesting, and there's a lot of peripheral backstory and backlash with that, which remains to be seen how that's all going to play out. So, and Penny Hardaway staying in college, I think, is a if you believe what you read, where if he was a serious candidate with Orlando, kind of interesting that he would opt to remain at Memphis. But the flip side of that is, like, you're in college. In college, it's really interesting. Like, college sports, kind of, at the view from 30,000 feet, and college sports are set up so the best players go to the best teams, right? With recruiting and whatnot. Whereas in professional sports, the best players go to the worst teams because of the draft and inverse order and all that kind of thing. So I think, with Orlando, Penny was probably looking at that as, that's a multi-year rebuild and kind of a heavy lift with Orlando versus, in college basketball, and with his name and his stature and at Memphis and everything, and he's proven that he can recruit at elite level. Maybe sees more opportunity to have more success sooner.
Yeah, and we see that this Chauncey Billups hire and Jason Kidd, former players getting hired here. We've seen this with Tyronn Lue and so on and so forth. This is something we've seen. Jason Kidd returning to Dallas, there's been ups and downs and around the corners. I mean, obviously he left Dallas for Phoenix. There's been some not so glowing things about his personal life. There's been not so glowing things about, standing on a court when he was coaching another team and, interacting with players in a not so great way. So, I mean, is Jason Kidd, hiring him, knowing the off the court issues and knowing some of the on the court kind of not so sportsmanship type things as a coach, is this the right move for Dallas to hire Jason Kidd, or anybody to hire Jason Kidd?
Well, Jason Kidd, when he was in New Jersey, he tried a power play and basically lost, and so he was out of town there. But I think the thing with with Jason Kidd is he goes to Milwaukee, and the year out, like, Budenholzer replaced him in Milwaukee, and all of a sudden, as soon as Budenholzer came in, their best record in the East, conference finalist type team, with basically the same roster at first that the Kidd was dealing with. So, I'm skeptical of, at the end of the day, his success or lack of success in Dallas is going to be really tied very, very closely to a couple of things. First and foremost, it's going to be his relationship with Luka, and how well they work together and how well he can put pieces around Luka and maximize what's around Luka while still playing the Luka skills. Perhaps maybe getting more out of Porzingis. That's more of a front office decision, but either moving on from Porzingis and coming up with another number two option, or getting more of the Porzingis that we saw in New York earlier in his career. So I think really at the end of the day, that's going to determine what kind of success or lack of success Kidd has in Dallas.
And, seeing, him being in Dallas, that move made possible by Rick Carlisle stepping down and going to the Pacers. Carlisle, 13 seasons with the Dallas Mavericks and a championship, and now he's going back to Indiana, where he was from 2003 to 2007. He made the postseason 3 times and made it to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2004. What do you make of the move for Rick Carlisle's return to Indiana after over a decade in Dallas?
Well, I think in terms of him leaving Dallas, it just feels like, Donnie Nelson was gone, and it felt like, as an observer, that like all sides of that equation, from Carlisle to the Cuban to the Mavs, just felt like his time had kind of run its course in Dallas. And, so I think in that sense, I understand him moving on and whatnot. I think, Indiana, I think that's an interesting move for him to go back to Indiana, on a couple of fronts. One is you don't see it very often, in sports where, coach will go back, to the same place. But the other thing about it is, like, Indiana was, when McMillan was there, they fired McMillan, who we've talked at length about during this postseason, and he was a guy that I thought really got the most out of that team, and had him in that 4 or 5 position in the East pretty much every year, and the rap was couldn't get out of the first round. Well, I think be careful what you wish for, because they replaced McMillan with Bjorkman, and they took a serious backward step this year. And again, if you believe what you read, a lot of that had to do with the kind of the culture and the environment in the locker room, and people turning Bjorkman off in a hurry. So I think Indiana made that move, and it backfired in a big way. So the response there is to go out and hire a coach with a with a proven track record and pedigree and everything, and they certainly got that by hiring Carlisle. He's probably the most accomplished coach that's on the market this year.
And coming from coach to coach, Dave Pasiak, about these coaches, Rick Carlisle and company. So, Dave, as always, I appreciate it. We got plenty coming up here. We know we got at least a couple more games, if not 3 more games, between the Hawks and the Bucks. And we know the Suns have the beauty of being able to sit and watch, which is a beautiful thing. When you win, and you win early, you have the opportunity to spend time really studying your team, and that's exactly what they'll do. So with that being said, I appreciate you studying all that you do. It's going to be here on the show, and to give your expertise, your knowledge, and your wisdom to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside the Cafe Kubal studios. As always, Mr. Pasiak, I appreciate having you on the show, and I look forward to having you back next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan, and have a great 4th of July, and we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Happy 4th. Take care. That coming from Dave Pasiak here, where sports meets life, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And always appreciate having Dave on the show. We'll take our final step aside of today's broadcast on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside the Cafe Kubal studios, and get everything set for Friday right after this.
Cafe Kubal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafekubal.com. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way out to the Millhouse Market and download their app on the Google Play and Apple App stores. Once you download the app, you'll have all of the information at your fingertips. You'll even have directions on how to get there, which is incredible. So make sure that the Millhouse Market app, it was easy before. Somehow it got even easier with directions from wherever you are, information on everything on the menu, contactless pay. You can tip on the app, all made easy. Head out to the Millhouse Market for everything, including their sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski, which bonds with our community and bonds with our history, which is a beautiful thing. So make sure you head out to the Millhouse Market today, and you can head there on Tuesday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. for their indoor dining you can have in their restaurant. Their bistro restaurant changes the menu every weekend, so you can get something new there every weekend. And, of course, you can join them as well by going to their general store and to the drive-through window. So make sure that you support local over at Millhouse Market today, 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Worth the drive every time. Avicoli is located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, is our home for our Liverpool Warriors athletics show every single month. Come out and see us every month and find out when we're going to be there by going to our social media on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. And, of course, Tuesday through Sunday, you can head off to Avicoli's for lunch, dinner, and drinks in their pizza side, more casual side, to their fine dining side, their bar, and their outdoor dining. 4 different ways to experience Avicoli's every single week. And, of course, for takeout, delivery, and catering, you can call them at 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100, or go to myavicolis.com. Canine Campground Dog Boarding and Canine Camp Dog Daycare are your home for your furry-loving friend. They're home away from home when they need a place to stay, and you want to make sure your dog's being taken care of very well. Listen, you look no further than Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. I've trusted them with my little one, and you can trust them with yours. They have all different breeds of dogs, all different types and shapes and sizes of dogs, and they make sure that when those dogs come in, they have a good temperament, they can play well together, that they have the shots that they need. So they really do go the distance to make sure that your animal is going to be safe and sound around other dogs, as well as with their incredible team that's headed up by Lorraine Perry, as well as Chad and Heather and the entire team. So a big thanks to Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding for all the work that you do in East Syracuse. That's really, truly worth the drive from wherever you are in central and upstate New York to make sure that your dog is taken care of either for the day or for a series of days in a beautiful, safe, and really happy environment. PB&J's Lunchbox you can find on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Make your way out to PB&J's Lunchbox. You know them for their food truck that's come out to numerous events in central and upstate New York, and you can follow them with their food truck. You can also head to them now. It's the beauty of loving a food truck and then knowing that they have a cafe. So when you're craving that food truck food, you can just drive your truck or car right over to their new street side cafe on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Minutes from the Thruway, the Highway, Onondaga Lake Parkway, and Destiny, USA. Head out to PB&J's Lunchbox, the home of the award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics I've trusted for almost a decade now in taking care of me and my injury. And the thing that I look at when it comes to finding a place to, get yourself healthy and get yourself well, when I'm looking for a doctor and a team, I look for people that listen to you and care about you. Dr. Mark Petropoli and his entire team at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, every time I walk through the door, make me feel important, listened to, appreciated, heard. It's so many patients talk about not being heard. And Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics make sure that you are. They bring you through the process, and whether it's rehab, physical therapy, preventative care, or surgery, They're listening to you, taking you step by step, telling you the whys, and seeing how you feel about everything. They're not just there to get us to a place of health and wellness. They're there to help us understand how we get there and to take our hand in the process. So Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, incredible for our community, incredible in supporting a local business, and incredible in the fact that they are led by a team that truly listens to their patients. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, 315-685-7544. Make your appointment today. It's 315-685-7544. With all that being said, inside the Cafe Kubal Studios, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank you for listening on today's broadcast and watching on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, and of course for listening on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. So thank you so much for being a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, however you're listening and however you're watching Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, you can search us on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Podbean, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and MixLR simply by looking up Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or searching one word, Wake Up Call DT. A proud thanks to all of our partners in Central and Upstate New York, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Pizza Man, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Honda City of Liverpool, Avicoli's, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Use the online promo code DT20 in any one of the 50 states, and they will deliver to you with 20% off. So go to Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com. Whatever state you live in, use that promo code at maandpazpopcorn.com, DT20. That's DT20 for 20% off. And if you live in the community and you're going to go to Ma and Paz on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, you can still order online for pickup, and you can still get the 20% off. As long as you order online, whether you're in the community or outside of the community in any one of the 50 states, you can get 20% off by going to maandpazpopcorn.com and using the promo code DT20. That's DT20. A big thanks to my incredible guest today, Jason Lucas, talking with me about the NFL as well as the transfer rule, NIL, name, image, and likeness, and the expansion of the college football playoff, and Dave Pasiak speaking with me about the NBA playoffs and the goings-on of the NBA and some coaching hires and all of that in connection with professional basketball here in America. So, thank you to Jason, thank you to Dave, thank you to you. Tomorrow's show is going to be broken up into two parts. If you're watching on video, it's going to be broken up into two pieces, so make sure that you connect with us on both of them. Be two videos tomorrow. The trio of segments, the Annoying Moment of the Week presented by Carvel DeWitt, Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad Lib, and Deliver presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay with Juanita Ward, Top Dog of the Week presented by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. Those three segments will be in one video at 9 a.m. Eastern Time to about 10, a little bit after 10. And then at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time, a special will air on Facebook and YouTube with Bryce Zaccaro, native pitcher of Central New York who plays for CNS, and it's called Leave It on the Mound. That special, brought to you by Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Leave It on the Mound, will air tomorrow morning at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. So don't miss a minute of our trio in the first video at 9 a.m. and don't miss a minute of our special Leave It on the Mound with Bryce Zaccaro of CNS here in Central New York coming up at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow morning after the trio in its own video. So check out all of that. In the meantime, find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, the Twitter at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, WakeUpCallDT.com, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, and of course, as always, I leave you with these words. God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk with you soon.